Welcome to the Thriving Gut Series, Session 3. My name is Vasi Smith. I'm founder of the Thrive community, where I help people from all walks of life release excess weight and thrive every day and in every way. And I'm doing this series together with Dr. Abigail Seaver, um, who is a specialist in gut health and supports people in healing their guts, healing hormone imbalances, and all sorts of different things with natural health. So this series is loosely based on the book called Super Gut, and that's the information that Dr. Abigail has been sharing, as well as her own experience and expertise in the field of gut health. And something in this book that really stuck out to me was that our ancestors had, like our hunter-gatherer ancestors, actually had a very different kind of microbiome than we have today. They had more of certain bacteria, such as L. reuteri, and various other ones that we don't have as much of today. So they know this because they can actually look at people who are living hunter-gatherer lifestyles today and look at their microbiome. And it just looks different. But the neat thing is that we can actually learn from our ancestors whose whose microbiome was arguably quite a bit healthier than ours today. We can learn from them and we can take tips, tricks, and ideas from the way that they lived. So, if we think about it, our ancestors did not have access to carbohydrates as much as we do, like constant access. They had, fruits. They could have fruits in season. They could have honey occasionally, but they did not come across fields of cupcakes and sweetbreads and ice cream and all these things that we are exposed to today. And these are things that actually do change our microbiome and they can feed bacteria and fungi such as Candida, and lead to overgrowths that can create symptoms for us and that we want to work on balancing and regulating. So that's one thing we can learn from our ancestors is limiting those things. That doesn't mean not having them ever, but it means the more we can stay away from processed carbohydrates like cupcakes, cakes, ice cream, processed sugar, processed flour, the more we can support our gut and being as healthy as it can be. Another thing that our ancestors did frequently, without even really meaning to, is that they practiced something called intermittent fasting. And you may have heard of it. It's a bit of a craze in some health and wellness communities. Has anybody here experimented with it or played with it? Just raise your hand or drop a yes in the chat. So a bit, we have some. And everybody's doing it to some extent. Unless you're eating all through the night, like every hour, you're practicing some form of intermittent fasting. So ideally, you're not eating about 8 to 12 hours between dinner and breakfast, but you can also explore some of the longer fasts that give your digestion a break. And we'll talk more about intermittent fasting as we go. But that's the second thing that our ancestors did differently than us. They fasted in between periods of eating. They would have periods where they would feast. Maybe they had a big hunt, or there was a bunch of fruit that they picked, and so they would just feast on all that food. And then they might go for a few days, or in the winter, it might be even a week without so much food. They would still maybe have some seeds that they picked that and some meat that was left over, but they would have much less food during periods of time. So fasting is something that they practiced regularly, which actually impacts our gut quite a bit. And then probiotics is something that they had access to. Different bacteria and fungi in the soil that supported their gut health, which sadly, in our day and age, we don't have as much access to. We have a lot of herbicides and pesticides that are used on our food, so we don't ingest those very healthy health promoting probiotics as much as our ancestors did. They had them in the soil, they had them in the water, possibly. Even in the air, you can ingest bacteria. And we live in a very sterile environment where, we're used to using sanitizer and washing our hands all the time. And, there can be benefits to that. But one of the things that's not so good about using so many sanitizers is that it kills bacteria in our environment. And so we don't have as much access to those things. And the other thing that they did is seasonal eating. Um, and so that means eating things when they're in season and then staying away from them more or less when they're not in season, unless, some things can be preserved. But eating in season is something that they did. So we're actually going to start with probiotics because that is the video that I have from Dr. Seaver. So we'll start with probiotics, and then after that, I'll talk about intermittent fasting and how that can affect our gut. And we're not going to get as much into the seasonal eating part of it, but that's absolutely something that you could research on your own, or Dr. Seaver is always happy to talk to people about that as well. And Ayurveda, Ayurveda goes into that quite deeply as well. The idea of seasonal eating and trying to stick with the foods that are very freely available at any time of the year. But yeah, that can actually really support our guts as well because we will have different microbes available at different times of the year. Um, so I will share my screen so that you can see the video from Dr. Abigail Seaver. And she will be talking about probiotics and how to pick a good probiotic. And how many of you have used or even use right now probiotics? Raise your hand or pop a yes in the chat. Some experience with that. Great. Yeah, so probiotics, Dr. Seaver will go into what they are and then we'll discuss it more after this talk as well. Here we go.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for our third session of the Thriving Gut series. Today, we are going to be talking about probiotics. My name is Abigail Seaver. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I specialize in healing gut conditions and digestive problems, balancing hormones, and treating autoimmune conditions. So I welcome you here today with Vasi and I, and probiotics are a huge topic. So let's just jump in and get started. So, what are probiotics? Probiotics, the word actually comes from a Greek term meaning for life. And so probiotics are actually live microorganisms, very small organisms, and they also are health promoting and life promoting. So the name seems very appropriate. So probiotics are microorganisms that are found throughout our digestive tract, and they are also found in certain types of foods, fermented foods, for instance. And there's a lot of similarity or crossover between fermented foods and the bacteria in our digestive tract. So these bacteria are no, they number in the trillions. So there's a huge quantity of them in the gut, and they have many benefits for us. So we're going to be talking about that. But in terms of probiotics that are found in foods or beverages or dietary supplements, in order to be called a probiotic, they have to have been shown to have a beneficial effect on the human body in research. And these products have to have been proven to have some live bacteria still remaining after that food is packaged or processed or however it's manufactured. And the two probiotic families that are most present in some of these probiotic products and foods and beverages that you may have heard of are called Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium strains. So, what do these microorganisms actually do? They actually have multiple benefits and multiple functions, and these functions are actually pretty diverse. So it's astonishing that these tiny little gut microorganisms can do such an array of things. But I'm just going to give you a brief list here. So, one of the things that they do is compete with pathogens or bad organisms for what are called adhesion sites. So basically, the beneficial bacteria um, outnumber and block pathogens or bad organisms from binding to the wall of the intestine and thereby prevent the pathogen from staying around very long and affecting our health. The probiotics also help to make a nice thick mucus layer along the lining of the intestine. Our intestines have a mucus layer that is a barrier to pathogens. And so the probiotics help to make this, and that helps to prevent the pathogens from getting through that intestinal lining, which is pretty thin, and getting into our bloodstream where they could make us sick, essentially. They also help to modulate the immune system. So probiotics actually promote and activate the two parts of our immune system. So we have, generally speaking, two parts to our immune system. Our innate immune system, which is the immune system that we were born with, which is a more of a general immune response. And then we have an adaptive immune system, which is something that we've developed over time in response to pathogens. So probiotics are actually very instrumental in keeping that system tuned up and working properly. Probiotics also increase the production of anti-inflammatory compounds called cytokines. So, sufficient probiotics or beneficial bacteria can reduce inflammation in your intestines, and they can also reduce inflammation in your body as a whole. And then this seems like it's pretty far-fetched and pretty far from the gut, but probiotics can also be instrumental in helping you to make neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are chemicals that we think of as associated with the brain, but they include compounds like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA that help keep us calm and happy. And probiotics actually regulate the production of those neurotransmitters. So our mood and the balance of our emotions is actually a lot of that is happening in the gut. A lot of the production of those neurotransmitters is happening in the gut. So a happy, healthy gut can help to promote a happy, healthy mood in many cases. And then what conditions do probiotics actually treat? So probiotics oftentimes seem like a very general, non-specific supplement, dietary supplement to us, and many of us maybe don't really know what they actually treat or what they would actually help us with specifically. So the research on probiotics has shown that they can be beneficial for atopic dermatitis, which is otherwise known as eczema. It's a very common skin condition, skin rash that often occurs in children but can occur in adults. So there's good research on eczema in the use of probiotics. Also, infectious diarrhea. So the treatment of infectious diarrhea, whether it be from a bacteria or from a virus, say food poisoning or a stomach virus, for instance, traveler's diarrhea. There's really good research showing that probiotics are beneficial in treating that type of diarrhea. Also, diarrhea that has been caused by antibiotics. So, taking antibiotics can sometimes cause diarrhea, and taking probiotics can treat that effectively. Also, irritable bowel syndrome. So, probiotics can have a balancing effect on the bowel and thereby help people who are having irritable bowel syndrome. So, that's a syndrome that's extremely common that can cause gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain. Oftentimes, folks are going back and forth between constipation and diarrhea and not finding a good balance, and the probiotics can help with that. Um, Also, recurrent infections. So, in my practice, I have found that recurrent infections like urinary tract infections, vaginal yeast infections, even recurrent sinus infections or ear infections can be prevented by taking probiotics or using probiotics regularly. And then there is research showing that probiotics might be beneficial for a whole host of other medical conditions, ranging from obesity to diabetes to cardiovascular disease, pulmonary disease, and even nervous system disorders. So there may be benefit for our whole system for a wide range of health conditions. So when I think about using probiotics in my practice, in general, I think about them as a modulating, balancing type of a substance. So, for instance, probiotics can dampen an overexcited immune system. So, like in the case of autoimmune disease, where your immune system is overacting and it's kind of going outside the normal boundaries of what it typically does, and it's attacking your own tissue. Probiotics can help to modulate and just dampen it and bring it down some. They can also bring an immune system up when it's under functioning. So when your immune system is low and it's not working enough, it's not giving you enough protection against pathogens, it can help to bring that up. The same thing with the bowel. When there's alternating constipation and diarrhea, and you can't quite come to a good balance and come back to normal, probiotics can have a balancing effect in that sense. So I think about them as modulating and balancing in many cases. So, are there any situations where probiotics are not helpful? So probiotics are contraindicated, so they are not recommended in people who are severely immune suppressed. So let's say you have cancer and you are on chemotherapy and your white blood cell count is extremely low. In that situation, probiotics are not indicated because the bacteria in the probiotics can actually make you sick, as the same as if a pathogen would make you sick. So hopefully most of us will not encounter that situation, but that is really one of the only times that we don't give probiotics. But probiotics can also cause some side effects, especially if you are already experiencing a great deal of gas and bloating, or if you have SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And we went into that extensively in our last session. So if you're experiencing a great deal of gas and bloating on a regular basis, adding in more bacteria in the form of probiotics can sometimes make those symptoms worse. So what I recommend in that case is to see me, and we'll talk about using an herbal antimicrobial regimen, and then we'll start using probiotics to bring in more beneficial bacteria. But sometimes initially, probiotics make your symptoms worse, and we don't want that. So if you have tried taking probiotics and they really don't agree with you, they make your digestion actually worse, then see me, because there are probably some things that need to be corrected before you can actually start using probiotics and having them be beneficial. So, what to look for in a probiotic? What you're going to want to look for is some specific things on the label of the probiotic, including the genus and the species. So that's the name of the actual bacterial species found in the product. And then the number of colony forming units or CFUs, which is how they measure the number of billion bacteria that are present in that product. So each type of bacteria should state the genus and the species. So let's say Lactobacillus acidophilus is the genus and the species, and then it might say 5 billion after that, and that is the number of colony forming units. And so the different types of species that you might be looking for include lactobacillus species, bifidobacterium species, bacillus species, and Saccharomyces boulardii, which is actually a yeast. These are some of the most researched types of commercially available probiotics. And you might find others, but those would be some of the common ones to look for in a probiotic. And you also want to pay good attention to how the probiotics should be stored. So there should be clear instructions on the bottle that say this should be refrigerated or this product is shelf stable. If it needs to be refrigerated and it hasn't been, then it's not going to stay fresh for very long and won't be as effective. But probiotics that are shelf stable are becoming more common, so it is easier to find one that does not need to be refrigerated nowadays. Um, I would also either see me or do a little research about the condition that you're aiming to treat with probiotics to see what the research has recommended as far as the species that are most beneficial and the number of colony forming units that are most beneficial. So I find especially that the number of billion probiotics that are in a product can make a huge difference in terms of whether it does anything noticeable for you. So sometimes I have patients coming in who are taking one capsule of a low potency probiotic to treat diarrhea, and I might have them quadruple the dose or even more. And at that point, we would see an effect. So sometimes the dosage can make a big, big difference as far as whether you see a benefit or you don't see a benefit. So I also highly recommend including probiotic foods. So we've discussed this in other sessions, but I'm going to just run through them again. These are naturally fermented foods that are available at your local health food store, or you can make them in your home. And they include yogurt, kefir, naturally fermented sauerkraut, kombucha, miso, and tempeh. So these foods actually contain some of the species that we've just talked about, and those foods are beneficial when eaten as a food. And then, as we discussed in some of our other sessions, including prebiotic fiber foods is important with your probiotic food. So they don't need to be eaten at the same meal or at the same time, but you need to eat them as part of your diet because those foods that are rich in prebiotic fibers feed the beneficial bacteria and keep them happy and healthy. So sources of those prebiotic fibers or starches include onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, artichokes, beans, green bananas. So these foods can be included in your diet regularly to keep your good bacteria happy and healthy. And you can augment your probiotic regimen or your fermented food regimen with making sure you're getting those prebiotic fibers in your diet so that your gut bacteria stay healthy. So that's what I wanted to address tonight. Please contact me with any questions or if you'd like help with getting your gut tuned up, I'd be happy to help you. And I'm going to turn things over to Vasi at this point. Thank you and good night.
So this is a probiotic that I personally use. This is um gut recovery probiotic. It's Ancient Nutrition, which is Dr. Josh Axe's company, and this one has a lot of the species that are well researched that Dr. Abigail shared. And I just get this at natural grocers or any health food store would have it. Um, so okay, let me just check the chat. Okay, so if you have any questions, or thoughts, feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand. So this book, Super Gut, which you can find on Amazon or in the library, it talked about one specific species called L. rotari, Lactobacillus rotari, which is a very powerful species of bacteria that is becoming more and more rare in our current microbiome. And it's amazing all the things it can do. He goes through it in the book. It increases our oxytocin. So it actually increases our feelings of compassion and empathy. It can help to counter depression and anxiety. It reduces skin wrinkles, accelerated healing, restoration of youthful muscle and strength. Um, so that's one thing you want to look out for in a probiotic as well is Lactobacillus rotari, and I will write it in the chat. It's L-R-E-U-T-E-R-I or Lactobacillus rotari. So that's something to look out for when you're looking for a good quality probiotic. And it's interesting, a lot of the benefits that Dr. Abigail mentioned that probiotics have on the body, fasting can actually have similar benefits for the body. So when you allow yourself to fast, 14 hours is where they've started kind of studying 14 up to 17, 18, or even 24 hours between your meals, but usually it's between like dinner and your next meal of the day so that you use your sleeping window as part of that fast. But that decreases inflammation in the gut, similarly to probiotics. And research has shown that it actually will adjust the bacteria that are in your gut when you practice it regularly, like 2 or 3 times a week. Do some fasting of 14 hours plus. It increases the beneficial bacteria in the gut. It decreases the harmful bacteria and fungi in the gut. Partially, I believe, because we're just not feeding, we're not, feeding ourselves with sugar or feeding those bacteria that hurt us. We're taking a break, we're giving our digestive system a break. And another thing that it does is it creates a process called autophagy in the body. And I will write this in the chat too. It's AUTOPHAGY. And that literally means self-eating. It can sound kind of strange when you first hear about it, but it's literally the process of your body starting to go through and eat parts of the body that are diseased or that aren't working well. Things like tissues and cells all throughout the body that are not working well. The body will use those as food when we're not consistently bringing in nutrients into our system. So autophagy is part of the reason that fasting can be so good for gut health as well, because it helps to reset your gut. And that's something that our ancestors also practiced, which probably helped them to have a much healthier gut microbiome than we generally do today. And a way that I recommend starting with intermittent fasting is basically calculate how much time you have between dinner and breakfast. For many people, it's somewhere between 8 to 10 or 11 hours. And then just experiment with going 1 or 2 hours more and just see how you feel and do that once a week, maybe then twice a week if it feels okay. You can keep going, but you don't necessarily, so you want to have at least 10 hours ideally every day. But then you can experiment with going to 12 hours or maybe 14 hours and seeing how you feel. You can either make your dinner earlier, so finish eating earlier, or you can have your breakfast a little bit later. So that increases the amount of time that your body is not consuming um, nutrients and nutrition. And during this time, you can absolutely drink water. Herbal tea is even okay. Some people talk about black coffee being okay. I don't drink coffee, so I don't do that. But and something to watch out for with coffee is that it can have mycotoxins in it if it's not organic, which is not going to help your gut. So if you are a coffee drinker, definitely pick the highest quality. It might even be labeled mycotoxin free, organic. But as long as you're not consuming sweeteners during your fasting window, you can have liquid. So you don't want to have like tea with honey that would take you out of the fasted state. But just an herbal tea is fine. Um, so yeah, that's one way that you can use fasting. Um, and I just wanted to have to brainstorm a little bit as we're going into the season of holidays and big meals and indulgence. Um, and we're getting close to Thanksgiving right now, but that can happen any time of the year. You know, in summer, there can be barbecues and potlucks and things like that. So, how do we balance um, feasting with keeping our gut nice and healthy? So that's one place, another place where we can actually learn from our ancestors. Let's remember they went through periods of feasting. They would have probably, I would imagine they would gorge themselves with food, especially if they hadn't had food for, a number of days. They would probably, really they don't skimp on food. So it's okay to feast sometimes. But a way to really support yourself if you choose to feast, within limit, you don't want to make yourself sick or anything like that. But you can think about having a lot of fiber, good fibers, vegetables, low sugar fruits, green apples, berries, things like that. So having fiber, having good proteins and fats, that helps to support your good bacteria. And then if you choose to have a treat or two, like a piece of pie at Thanksgiving with some ice cream, those things will um, help to not create an over infestation of candida in your gut because you're supporting your good bacteria. And you're also preventing a huge sugar spike from eating pie and ice cream. So that's a way that you can kind of practice mindfulness around the time of indulgence and feasting is make sure that you're eating fiber, good proteins, good fats, ideally before you have any kind of sugary treat, which can support those more harmful bacteria like candida. They just eat that sugar right up. Um, Another thing you can do is add apple cider vinegar to your meal, either at the end or in the beginning. That also helps to mitigate that blood sugar spike so it doesn't go up as much. And apple cider vinegar is another fermented food that has wonderful probiotics for us. So that can support the good bacteria. I've started if I have a meal that has extra carbohydrates in it, even if it's like, a bunch of fruit, or sometimes I'll have like rice cake and honey, or I had some organic Halloween candy, high quality candy, but the candida doesn't care if it's high quality or not, it goes crazy on all of it. So I would have a cup with 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and some water in it after having those carbohydrates to mitigate that blood sugar spike. And then think about adding in more fasting periods in between periods of feasting. So you could even think about doing it like a few days before Thanksgiving. Um, Maybe do a fast of 16 hours or 14 hours, whatever feels appropriate for you to give your digestion more of a break and to boost up your good bacteria before you go into the feast. And then after you go into the feast, um, then make sure that you have a few really good meals. I don't recommend fasting right after you've had a high sugar meal because that sugar will then kind of just sit in your gut for a while. Because when you're not bringing in more food, your digestion can slow down a little bit, which is completely normal. But because of that, we don't want to, have this, big meal high ice cream and then go straight into a fast of 16 or 24 hours because that food will just sit there and that can actually promote more candida overgrowth. So you want to have a few, 2 or 3 good meals with maybe less carbohydrates, more vegetables, more good proteins and fats, like grass-fed meats or wild fish, or I'm a vegetarian, so I do a lot of like lentils and avocado and coconut yogurt, um, good proteins and fats, good fiber. And then after 2 or 3 meals, then try maybe a longer fast, like 16 or 18, or even a 24-hour fast. A 24-hour fast, you could do that if you, for example, finish eating one day at like 5 p.m. an earlier dinner in the scheme of things, and then the next day you don't eat anything until 5 p.m. in the evening. So that's your next meal. That's a full 24 hours. Um, Dr. Mindy Peltz is somebody I like to follow in the intermittent fasting world. She has a lot of really wonderful videos. I'll write down her name as well. But she talks about how a 24-hour fast will literally allow your gut to rebuild itself. Your mucosal lining is completely rebuilt in 24 hours. She has found that doing 2 24-hour fasts per week can be very beneficial for folks with irritable bowel syndrome or any kind of gut issues with gut symptoms that are uncomfortable. It can be very helpful. And in some cases, according to her, even as helpful as some medications that they might be on. So that could be something to try. That's fairly easy to try. Um, if you're having some gut symptoms, consider doing a 24-hour fast and maybe doing that twice during the week. Um, an important thing to consider with fasting is how to start eating food again. So you don't want to, have this healing process for your body and then come back into eating with like candy and cupcakes. You don't want to start feeding the bad bacteria again. You want to keep that healing process going as long as you can. So having a good quality probiotic is a great thing to bring in with your first meal, like sauerkraut, some of the things Dr. Seaver mentioned. Sauerkraut, good quality yogurt, a good quality probiotic, maybe one that has L-reuteri in it, and some of these other wonderful strains of probiotic. Um, and then you want to keep it. I personally like to keep it low carbohydrate for that first meal, especially. Just have some good quality proteins, maybe a little bit of fat, but fat can be it can be hard to process when you've given your digestion a break. So don't overdo it on the fat, but a little bit of fat could be some cooked veggies. My gut does okay with raw veggies. So I might have raw veggies or some gentle fruit that's not too high sugar, like a few pieces of green apple with some seeds or nuts, berries, veggies, either cooked or raw. Um, and keep it small because it actually decreases your appetite when you take a break from eating. So you want to give your body a chance to kind of adjust to food. You might feel hungry, like you could eat this huge plate of food, but keep it to small portions, and then you can always come back and eat more if you're still hungry. Um, Bone broth can be a very healing thing to have after a fast. That has some really good amino acids and has been shown in studies to actually seal leaky gut. If that's something that's happening for you, a bone broth can be a very healing thing to come back to eating with. So having some bone broth and then maybe having a small plate with high quality nutrient dense foods. So allowing your body to rebuild itself and allowing your gut to rebuild itself with those positive probiotics. So intermittent fasting can be a very, very positive thing to incorporate as part of a gut health regimen and maybe to use to help heal certain conditions as well. Um, and yeah, trying to keep those treats down, the cakes, the sugars, keeping those down just like our ancestors did, right? Not, or they didn't have any really, except for maybe honey. But if you're gonna have those, do it in a mindful way where you're making sure you have a lot of other high quality foods with them, maybe having some apple cider vinegar after your meal or before your meal. It doesn't seem to matter, according to Dr. Peltz, whether you have it before or after. It has that same effect where it keeps your blood sugar from spiking too high. Um, and another thing you can do to mitigate the effects of indulging over the holiday season, because you want to be able to be flexible. You want to be able to indulge if it feels right and appropriate. But another thing that you can do to support your gut health and your full physical health is do movement after a meal, especially if it's a big meal with carbohydrates. Go for a walk for like 15-20 minutes. It can even be a vigorous walk. Um, I mean, you probably don't want to like sprint or go running after a meal when your stomach is full, but keeping your body moving, that helps your system to clear that sugar out of your bloodstream so that it's not sitting around creating problems for your gut and for your whole self. So movement, walking, I do strength training sometimes after I have a big meal with I just have little weights, so it's not like intense strength training. It's my five-pound dumbbells. I'll do some strength exercises, do some squats, do some lunges. But keeping moving is really good for gut health, as Dr. Seaver mentioned at our last class, I believe. And then it also really helps to keep your blood sugar stable and in check, especially after a bigger meal where you might have had some pie or cake or ice cream, some extra carbohydrates more than you might normally. Um, so I think those are the tips I have. Those are the ideas I have for you today. I want to leave some time if anybody has questions or insights, feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand. Yes, Justine.
Hi, Vasi.
Hi.
I I missed one of the three things that are when probiotics are not good. There was chemotherapy, there was SIBO, and what was the third one?
Oh, the times when you shouldn't have the probiotics.
Right, yeah.
Does anybody remember that? Yeah, it was chemotherapy if you're malnourished. If you have SIBO, it can make it worse. I don't remember the third one.
Okay.
If you have a lot of bloating, I think, and indigestion.
Okay.
If you have a lot of bloating and indigestion, that can make it worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you speak more about the positive aspect of prebiotics? Because I guess what I understand is it's to feed the probiotics once you put them in there, but before nobody used to talk about prebiotics and now it's a big thing. So could you flesh that out just a little bit?
Yes. So what prebiotics do is they help to keep those populations of probiotics in your gut going for longer than, a lot of times when we take a probiotic or if we eat sauerkraut at one meal, well, that'll build up our probiotics in the gut, but then they just get flushed out, and it doesn't actually do anything for the long run. So if you also add prebiotics when you're consuming some of those good probiotics, like sauerkraut yogurt or good quality pill, the prebiotics will help to feed those so that it can actually they can start to repopulate your gut and stay around longer than just, for a few hours. Does that make sense?
It does. So if you didn't take prebiotics, then theoretically they don't have enough time to procreate and get to a population size that's large enough to stay in the gut. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, according to a lot of research, and Dr. William Davis goes into it in this book, is that, yeah, unless you're consistently adding probiotics and ingesting prebiotics consistently, um, a lot of what we consume through our food or even through a pill will stick around for a few hours, maybe for a day, but it's not going to make a long-term sustainable difference. So yeah, consuming both, regularly consuming things that are fermented or or taking pills that put those probiotics in the gut, along with making sure that we're ingesting prebiotics daily. And maybe not at every meal, but every day you should have something that's on the prebiotic list. And raw potato is actually a really good one. I think he has some recipes in this book as well. I don't remember if Dr. Abigail shared that one. She shared leeks and garlics and onions. So there's lots of wonderful prebiotics. Raw potato is one of them. And you can even get like a powder or a pill that you can add to your smoothie that has some of those prebiotic fibers. Excuse me. Does that answer
Thank
your
you.
question, Justine?
Yeah, I mean, I've been through gut stuff for a long time, and I've been through on and off phases with probiotics and experienced no difference at all, just the hit to the pocketbook. So do people, when they start this, they stay on probiotics for life, or is this something you do to help deal with a acute condition, and then once you're balanced, you don't need them? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think it would be great to make an appointment with Dr. Seaver. She can go into it even deeper. My personal kind of take on it is that, yeah, probiotic is a great thing to take for acute situations. So I don't even take these every day, but I started these when I took antibiotics and I wanted to rebuild my good gut bacteria. But yeah, typically they're kind of price prohibitive. They're very expensive. But things like sauerkraut you can get pretty cheaply. Certain yogurts and making your own can make it even cheaper. That's one of my goals in the next few weeks, actually, is trying to make more of my own yogurts. Yeah, and this book actually has some good recipes for yogurts as well, and sauerkrauts, and making your own version of really probiotic rich foods that are a lot cheaper than pills you can buy in the store. Yeah, but yeah, unfortunately, it may not have much of a difference for you. Sometimes probiotics help, sometimes they don't. But the more we can support ourselves in eating more probiotics just daily through our food, I think that can make an even bigger difference. That just kind of creates a different balance of those probiotics in our gut, especially when you're also adding the prebiotic fibers. Any other questions or thoughts before we do our visualization? You had another one. Go ahead, Justine.
Sorry. Um, can you advise is there any way to see the prior session that was on SIBO?
Yes. So Dr. Abigail sent it out to her email list. You can
Okay.
also find it in the Thrive community. I'll put the link down here. So those are up in the Thrive community or through the email list.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're actually going to create a course out of these that people can buy in the future. But for right now, they're free for the next number of weeks for anybody who's attended to be able to see the whole series. We want to make them super available.
Thank you.
Thanks for your questions. Yeah, any other questions or thoughts before we jump into our guided relaxation portion? Okay, so we're gonna go into our guided relaxation part of our talk. So finding a comfortable position, you can be sitting or lying down, whatever feels best to you. And just starting to connect with your breath, allowing your body to relax. And imagining a wave of relaxation moving from the top of your head to your feet, relaxing every part that it touches, moving super slowly, relaxing your scalp, forehead, eyes, all the muscles around your eyes, your cheeks, your nose, your mouth and chin, relaxing your brain, allowing your thoughts to just dissipate, allowing yourself to just start to feel really comfortable and at ease as this wave of relaxation moves down through your neck, the front of your neck, the middle and back of your neck, clearing any stress or tension from your neck. Feeling that wave going down through your shoulders, allowing your shoulders to relax and release. Your upper arms, your elbows, forearms, wrists, hands, feeling completely relaxed, completely at ease. As any stress or tension flows away from your body, feeling that wave of relaxation moving through your heart and upper back, through your middle torso, middle back, your abdomen, and all the organs in your digestive system, allowing them to relax and release any stress or tension. As that wave moves down through your lower abdomen and lower back, relaxing, releasing every part of your torso. Feeling that wave going down through your hips, your upper legs, your quads, thighs, knees, shins, calves, ankles, heels, tops of your feet, the bottoms of your feet, and every single toe. Your whole body is now completely relaxed, allowing yourself to just be really comfortable and at ease here as you invite any remaining stress or tension to just flow away from you. No one needs anything from you in this moment. You can just allow yourself to be, to relax. You can allow your mind to drift. And just enjoy this feeling of deep relaxation. And from this place, we're going to engage our imagination and see ourselves at some social event where there is food available, a lot of food and a whole variety. You notice how relaxed and how at ease you feel, knowing that you can make the right choices for yourself to support your gut health, to support yourself in this social situation where a lot of food is available. You notice how easy it is to connect with joy. You notice that the food's not even calling you right now. You're enjoying connecting with people. You're enjoying the conversations, the decorations, the colors around you, lights, noticing what you see with your eyes, what you hear, and noticing how at peace you feel and how joyful you feel in this moment. Just allowing yourself to be in this situation, allowing yourself to connect with joy, allowing yourself to feel complete peace. Even if in the past this situation might have felt triggering for you in some way, in this moment, all you feel is joy and peace. And then allowing yourself to check in with your body, seeing if maybe it's time to get some food. And if it is, allowing yourself to move in that direction. And if it's not, then continuing to just enjoy being in that place, having conversations, maybe just looking around you and enjoying the environment. If you do choose to get food, noticing how easy it is for you to make good choices, the healthiest choices for yourself in this moment. You notice how easy it is to pick high quality, vibrant foods that you know will bring you energy and support your gut health. Maybe it's vibrant salads or cooked vegetables that are full of nutrients. Maybe it's high quality fats and proteins, like simple meats, simple dishes with good fats and proteins that will support your gut and your health. And you might choose to have a treat or two, but you know that you have good balance. You know that you have healthy, healthy foods that you can enjoy and indulge in. And if you choose to have a treat, you know that's totally okay too, and that you're doing it in a place of balance, in a place of mindfulness. And allowing yourself to enjoy making healthy choices for yourself. And as you're ready with the food that you need, you can go back to either sit down or continue standing and having a conversation with someone, or just take your time eating and being really mindful, noticing what would feel really good in your body at this moment in this social situation. And even as you eat, knowing that you have tools to support yourself in being optimally healthy. You know that you can have some apple cider vinegar afterwards with water if you choose to, if you feel like you maybe had too many of those treats. You can use that to help your body deal with the sugar in a better way. You know that you can move. You can go for a walk either by yourself or invite somebody to come with you. You can move after your meal. You have tools that support you. You know that you can indulge if you wish to, and that you can also balance it. You might even choose to do a longer fast sometime in the next few days to help balance out whatever choices you're making in this situation. You feel a deep sense of your own connection to yourself and what feels really good to you. And you feel capable of making the right choice, the best choice for yourself in every moment, knowing that you have tools to be healthy, tools to optimize your gut health and the health of all the cells in your body. And allowing yourself to connect with the following statements that remind you of how capable you are. I am capable of making healthy choices for myself in every moment. I am good at balancing optimum health and full enjoyment. I'm capable of achieving my health goals. And I know it's okay to have treats every once in a while, whatever that looks like for me. I know that I can have good balance and make really good choices for myself at all times. I have emotional resilience. I'm capable of dealing with my emotions at all times, no matter what the situation is. I can enjoy food without letting it become an emotional crutch for me all the time. And noticing if there's any other positive and powerful statements that you would like to connect with in this moment to remind you that you are capable of making healthy choices for yourself, and they can look different from moment to moment. And as we get ready to start to come back, reminding yourself that you can come back to this feeling of strength and joy and capacity for making healthy choices for yourself in every situation. You can come back to it any time in the comfort of your own internal world, in your own imagination. You can use those things to support you in making good choices as you move through your world. I will count you down from 5 to 1. With every number, we come back a little bit more. 5, noticing your breath. 4, feeling your connection with your seat or maybe the surface you're lying on. 3, noticing any sounds in your environment. 2, noticing energy moving through your body as you come back more and more. And 1, allowing your eyes to gently open if they're not open yet. Feeling your full energy, your full presence back in this moment, back in your space. Welcome back.